The Indie Council is in session. Welcome. This is a place for the leading voices from across the industry to gather and talk news, titles, and everything indie. I am 2 times in a row, heck yeah, your master of ceremonies, Jenny Wyndham. Joining the council today is blessed by the gods, Mike Towndrow.
Hades 2 is real good, y'all. It's real good. We'll talk about it later.
Jealous. Yeah, I'm not even gonna let you continue because, no, not fair. The Stairmaster Master, Janet Garcia.
Hello. I, for one, welcome our new overlord, Jenny. Hello.
Aw, chill.
It's okay. It's fine.
But you always go with who's in charge next, you know? It's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Undying loyalty.
I was going to say, I'm really just trying to measure up to the bar.
No, that
Jill
last
has
person
set.
was crap. Get her out of here.
No way. Well, Jill's been busy because Jill has been worried about kidnapping and how well that she's been doing in kidnapping sim. How are you doing, Jill?
I did so well, you guys. I was like breezing through it. I only messed up once, and I just had to stop and take some time to think about what that meant for me as a person. But we will also talk about that later on in the show, so be prepared.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, so really, I'm just holding down the fort while you go kidnap people. Once you're done, you've satiated that craving. The seat will be ready for you.
All
for
of
context,
the council.
in a video game.
In a
For
video-
anyone outside of video games listening.
Wink.
No wink.
It's okay. My
The
lawyer is also
council.
listening. We're good.
Yeah. Everybody on the council just slowly, one by one, just doesn't show up for the podcast anymore. and
That's
no one
got to
knows
be like a
why.
bad FMV game. And by bad FMV game, I mean most FMV games, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Listen, don't slam Will's Interactive.
Hey,
Bangers.
dude, we'll talk. I'm always down for Wales join.
So today in Indie News, we had a lot of stuff happen, I feel like, in the last 24 hours. So we have a lot to talk about. The first being, again, what we alluded to with Mike's blessed by the gods comment. Supergiant has announced Hades 2 technical test. They are doing this prior to early access to help find and solve any technical issues that they've missed in their internal testing. And it really is just giving everyone a chance to see how hot the gods are, what some of this early story looks like, and how the game plays. I have not had any experience with this, unfortunately. I think, is Mike the only one of the council who's been able to get his hands on it?
Yep.
Oh, my goodness.
My grubby little chubby thumbs.
Yeah,
You want to talk about it now?
I'd love to hear, I guess, just to give context too for folks who are like, how do I even put my name in the hat for this? If you have a Steam account, go to the Hades 2 store page. There is a button that says like request access, I believe, to the technical test. And it seems like they're rolling out access in maybe different waves. I don't know how many waves, how long this technical test will last. But let's see. They say our estimate is longer than a week, shorter than a month. So if you'd like to just put your name in the running, you can go to the Steam page. But Mike, how have your initial impressions been?
So I only had the chance to play about 20, 25 minutes. Just had a little bit of time in between work and this recording. So I got kind of the initial run and then got to the hub world and then started a second run. I was fully expecting just more Hades. It feels fantastic, somehow better than the original. It looks gorgeous. Like, I didn't think Hades 1 could look any better. And somehow, I don't know if it's just the shading, the color palette they're using, the animation, whatever it may be, this game is drop dead gorgeous. And for a technical test, it feels like I'm playing the early access version. It doesn't feel like I'm playing a beta early version that like a limited number of people have. Like, this game feels ready to go. Like, granted, again, I've only played 2 runs. I haven't gotten to the boss yet, but man, I am so impressed by those 20 minutes. And I said before recording, you're lucky. I love y'all because it's all I want to do right now. Like, I really want to get through this first run. I think that's what this technical test is. It is the first up to the first boss, I believe, and then you could keep playing, and then I think it encourages you to stop. But yeah, man, so far so good. You get to play as I guess light, not really heavy spoilers or anything like that, but just like light surface level stuff. You play as Zag's, I believe, older sister, Zag, the protagonist from the first game. and you are a witch, and you are doing the bidding of a headmistress witch to take down Kronos. So that's kind of the whole goal. You were doing these runs, and it's the same Hades gameplay loop of going through runs, meeting gods on the way. You die, level up a little bit, go on, do it again.
Just as a history nerd, is the head
Please.
witch Hecate?
Maybe.
Ugh.
I forgot.
Mike, I need to know. She's
Potentially.
She's so rarely portrayed in anything that I'm like, the first time I saw her show up, I was like, oh my god, that's who it is. That's who it is.
What a
But-
specific question. I'm not even smart enough to ask that question.
That's what I'm saying. In the pantheon of gods, not very well known. So I'm very.
If somebody wants a vamp for 5 minutes, I can find it in the gameplay recording.
So if anyone's heard of Jason and the Golden Fleece, the character Medea is the bad character. She's usually considered bad. Witch-like character, kills her children in a lot of the versions. She is a great and devout follower of Hecate. This is a god in the Greek pantheon who is typically not very well portrayed, not very well looked at. You don't want to get on her bad side. You don't really want to mess with her really at all. And like Jason the Golden Fleece is one of the earliest like Greek myths. So she's had this reputation for a long time. So you don't see her pop up unless you're talking about like mystical, magical, dark things you don't want to be messing around with. People usually she is a female, like she is a female god, but she is also the patron of females a lot of the time. And there's a lot of like, the men of history writing history don't really like it when women are getting power in this time period. There's a lot of like ancient Greeks are a lot about that, like women kind of scary when they have power situations. So I'm wondering how much of that is making its way into this game. I'm so excited for it. Mike, did I give you enough time?
Can confirm it is pronounced. What's the pronunciation?
Hecate.
Can confirm it's Hecate, Witch of the Crossroads.
Nice.
I love it.
I
Good
love
call.
this. First off, her character model, as you suspect from Hades 1, Jesus Christ. These character models, y'all. Somehow, even the Apollo, Zeus, whoever your old friends from Hades 1, they got hotter. More abs, 12 packs.
Whoa.
They're great. The witch looks quite nice. Voice acting is incredible. I'm not familiar with who's doing her VO, but it's incredible. The writing is remarkable. Even just I have a screenshot pulled up right now. For when you fail the run and you meet her for the first time. Melanie, who you play as, she's princess of the underworld. Just referring to your failed run. I lack such forgiveness for my failure, headmistress Hecate. The Titan yet lives and Olympus yet burns while I'm back where I started. What is it I accomplished? And Hecate replies, you're here to speak of it. Recovered in body, if not in spirit, you've not failed, merely begun. Thus you learn, grow stronger, complete your task, death to Kronos. The writing is impeccable. It is so hype. It is just like that alone reinvigorated me. Like I feel like you could get discouraged in times where you have a really good run, you make it to like world number 3, like towards the end, you fail and you don't want to do it again. Like you got that taste of success just ripped right from you. This kind of writing encourages me to jump right back in. I think that's really important when it comes to roguelites, that you want to encourage the player to just die and try again, and really profound dialogue like this to really I don't know, they hit the nail on the head. And again, I played exactly 23 minutes and 53 seconds. Goddamn, I want to play more, and I really hope y'all get into it so we could talk about it more next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think for folks who maybe if you want to check out some gameplay, but you don't have Steam or what have you, you don't get access. Supergiant, I believe, did a live stream today.
They did.
Showing off some of the gameplay. So you can also go to their Twitch channel and check out the VOD.
You can also go to youtube.com/601indie and watch these 23 minutes
yes.
of gameplay with Mike and Kyle screaming every moment of combat and cool system discovery and whatnot. There is the last thing I'll mention in terms of gameplay and kind of building on the original's gameplay. Didn't get to dig into it too much, but as you enter a new run, like before you go pick your weapons and whatnot, there is a card system where you could like pretty much unlock tarot cards, which are your roguelite abilities to
Ooh.
so you keep building upon. Um and each card has a lot of number to it, and you have like 10 slots that you could fill up. So let's say like one card is worth one slot, one card is worth 3 slots, that'll take up 4 in total. So you kind of like cater your builds with these new tarot card system. Really interesting. There's resources throughout the maps as well, so like to unlock those cards you are spending ash to get new weapons. I believe the currency is silver, so a lot more to dig into rather than just like hack and slash through enemies. Like it's worth kind of like taking your time exploring, seeing what the environment has to offer. But yeah, really excited to dig into it more. And it feels really close, and with a lot of the language that they're talking about this technical, like surrounding this technical test, I'd imagine this is a stealth drop during Keeley show at this point.
That would be interesting. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's I'm kind of envisioning that's where we're at.
yeah. I mean, if
SGF
they
to be
said,
clear, right?
sorry, go ahead.
SGF is what you mean, right?
Yeah,
Not like Game
Yeah.
Awards.
Yeah, SGF.
Because they did say like anywhere from a week to a month. That would be
Exactly. So
June.
a month. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I sort of like predicted as well. Already loading up the Summer Game Fest bingo card. I'm thinking Hades is gonna be somewhere in there.
Yeah, there's no way it misses.
Yeah.
Nah, no way.
And in addition to this amazing technical test that we've gotten to fan over, we had another showcase to watch. Nintendo Indie World Showcase happened April 17th, so this morning of our podcast recording, 7 a.m. Pacific time, nice and early, as Nintendo does. I'm really interested first, maybe to hear some of your gut reactions on the showcase. Like overall, how did you feel? And Janet, we can start with you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it overall. I think one of the big takeaways, or one of the things that stood out to me, was how many timed console exclusives they highlighted. I also think that's like a big deal for them to do because in the era of the Steam Deck, I personally am letting the Switch just like sit in the dock.
Mhm.
It hasn't gotten a lot of
Yup.
playtime from me. I think the last time I played it was for the Princess Peach game, which was kind of a short time as well because I don't really like it. So it's like, okay, it's been a little, we could use some. I think Nintendo could use a little bit of juice, especially in a year like this where they aren't pumping out really big releases, which is again to be expected. Not every year is going to be the greatest, most fantastic year of every company's life and every publisher's
Not every year
life.
is the year of Luigi, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
True.
Exactly. It can't all be. In my heart, every year's a year of Luigi. But in reality,
course.
some years it's a little quiet. And I think those quieter times are really great for shining a light on indies. Not that it should be done all the time, but I think it's like, okay, this is a great way to fill out that calendar. I think too, format wise, we've seen this time and time again from Nintendo Indie World. It is the like very like specific delivery and a cheesy joke. It's back to you. And I will say, like, yes, is it cheesy? Yeah. Is it a little too cheesy? Honestly, kind of. But the one thing that I will say is it does a really good job conveying information on the games. And that was something that we just talked about the Triple I
Mhm.
initiative showcase. That's something that I think when used correctly, that's what hosts can provide. Like I get no one really wants to see like a lot of talking head host like time, but the point of having hosts is to move the show along, create that pacing. And again, it is a little cheesy, but it is well thought out. It is thoughtfully constructed and it's always informative. Like I never feel like they're cracking jokes just to be like, haha. Like it's a little bit like that, but it's mostly the attention is on the games. And I get a really, really clear understanding of what these games are. And frankly, there's not a lot of showcases that I can say that for, which is fine. Everyone has their own style. But I think that's a real strong suit that they have with Indie World and its current structure. So yeah, enjoyed it overall.
Yeah.
Piggybacking off that really quick, like I really appreciate the talking heads because it really helps the viewer understand like, okay, why do I care about this game? Like, why
Mhm.
are you excited about this game, Nintendo? And it really does help highlight the key features of each game, as opposed to something like the Triple I where it was just trailer on trailer on trailer. It's like, okay, but why do I care? Like, what makes this game really cool? Why is this part of the showcase? And granted, you don't always need that, but I do appreciate that a lot. Were they too excited for 7 o'clock Pacific? Maybe, but you know.
Yeah, Jill.
It is funny because we are comparing this to Triple I a lot, and the reason for that is it only happened like 7 days ago. Like they are so close together, and having these indie specific showcases back to back, I think, is what the Triple I wanted to avoid. But of course, Nintendo's going to Nintendo, and it's going to drop its showcases whenever it darn well pleases. I think what everyone is saying totally like true. The talking heads are cheesy, but like it is it's so Nintendo. Like if they weren't there anymore, I would miss them.
Mhm.
You
Oh
know?
yeah, for sure.
For sure.
I think too, like they're not just talking, they're talking voices, really. You
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
see their faces, which honestly, that's also very Nintendo, because I don't think Nintendo wants you to know who those people are, because they're
Nope.
like, look, don't know them, don't like them, don't associate. Like they might as well be Mr. and Mrs. Nintendo. Like it's like it's just voices in the ether. But yeah, I think that also does help though with the not being like, okay, here's Sam and Samantha. Like I don't know who these people's names are, even though I think they do say their names, but they're kind of more a conduit than like personalities.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think too there were not it's interesting to watch also the difference in the Triple I, because the Triple I had a lot of things that weren't out there already. And so it was exciting in that way. You were seeing a lot of new things popping up. Whereas this, I don't think I hit anything on here that I didn't know of before. Or, I mean, there was the one big thing at the end, which we'll talk about. But I also wasn't particularly surprised by that either, even though that was its first announcement. Um, so there weren't a lot of new things, but this showcase had a ton of information in it, like we were saying,
Mhm.
and a ton of dates, including games, at least one game that I have in my mind that showed up at the Triple I and in this showcase that didn't give a release date for the Triple I, but gave a release date here, which I saw and I was immediately like, "Yep, that makes sense."
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, and then of course, we have to bring up the ever running joke of the game that won't be named by me not showing up at this showcase. I don't know if people really did expect it to be here or
I think
not,
I
because
don't
I think
Can I,
know.
people are just really desperate at this point.
may I
Yeah.
go on like a little tangent
I would
Sure.
love to go
about it?
along with you, Mike.
Silksong ain't gonna be in an indie showcase or
No.
Oh, definitely
a
not.
first party showcase at this point. It's a Keeley joint. We'll see it either at SGF or the Game Awards whenever it's ready. I really wish people would kind of granted, general audiences, they don't understand the inner workings. They're just watching a show. They see a Nintendo show, like, oh my God, Silksong, that's indie game, right? Um, but man, it just like really puts such a damper on the other games being shown. Like, out of curiosity, for every indie show now since Silksong was announced, I hide the chat right away because I know what I'm getting into.
Yep.
But as soon as that show ended, I was like, you know what? Let me pop it open just to see. Because of course, this week there was a bunch of like those trademark things popping off. So I was just very curious. And of course, it was like trash, L, what is this? What the hell? Disappointment, Silk Song, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, y'all, like legitimately, this show it provided dates for 5 of my most anticipated games of the year. And it's like,
Mhm.
yo, these things are bangers. Just appreciate what was shown to you. You will get Silk Song eventually. Let them do their thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which, by the way, is another really interesting touchstone back to Triple I, because that is something they talked about um, when I was talking to them at GDC. When the creators were like, we wanted to make this showcase because these larger platform showcases tend to get in the chat these people who are here to say mean things and who are just interested in, Silk Song, Silk Song, Silk Song. And like, I think it's very interesting that we do see that even in an indie showcase. As long as it's Nintendo, we're getting that kind of crowd, you know?
I think as long as it's first
Mhm.
party, you're
Yeah.
gonna get that.
Mhm.
Like, granted, wholesome is a weird example where I don't think people would expect Silksong in a wholesome showcase.
But we still get
Uh,
it.
It would
okay,
be
you still get it.
amazing.
That was gonna be my
That would be
question.
I
amazing.
was gonna say it's definitely not as prominent as in other showcases, but we've still gotten that in our chats as well, which is really fascinating to me.
I don't think we've gotten it on 6-1 yet, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Yeah,
I think it's also
well,
just me. I think it is memed at this point. And
yeah.
Oh,
I'm
of
sure
course.
there are some people that I like to think I'd like to think that people aren't so this sounds kind of mean. I'm sorry, but as dumb as to expect it on all of these showcases, like I could go live with like 4 indies I'm looking forward to, like Silksong. Like I like to think it's mostly memes, but sadly, having created content for many years on the internet, sometimes people are kind of that dumb. So it's like I think some of it is. I think there's a higher percentage of genuineness than I would hope because I think that is where we're at, societally speaking. I don't know if it's like the school system. It takes a village really to get people not to expect Silk Song and everything. But I will say, even though I was not expecting Silk Song, because it's like, again, it's an indie world showcase. It's like, it's okay. I think Silk Song has, gotten too big of a stage for that kind of thing, to just be like, oh, by the way. But I will say, as I wrote to y'all in our Discord chat, that genuinely, when they were like, we got time for one more, like for some reason my head went in silk. Like why would they toss it up that way? Like that's so I don't know, maybe I'm the dumb percentage, but because for a second I'm like, silk, like I don't know, because they started with like an S and I'm like, what are they gonna say here anyway? But yeah, it would be more shocking to me if we saw it at something that wasn't a Keeley joint, or I guess that's kind of it, because I don't think they'd like pull up on their own, like what's up, like where else would they
Yeah.
go?
I feel like, well, because here's the thing. Like, I think it's either Keeley or they do just surprise everyone and suddenly they're just like, we're just going to do it ourselves. Because it's like,
I mean, similar to Hades today.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
yeah, because they do have I think out of most of the indies out there, they are ones that have enough like clout and social weight that if they did that, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. I think they probably will go with a more traditional route and probably go with the Keeley like fest of some sort. But yeah, I'm like, I don't see them launching in any other way other than those 2 ways, personally. But we did get, unless anyone had anything else about Silksong,
Nope, go for
we
it.
did get a lot of really good announcements, and I did want to take some time to celebrate and highlight some of the ones that we really liked. I'm just gonna, since I get to talk first because I'm doing this, I'm just gonna claim the most excited Little Kitty Big City announcement. I was so stoked, which we knew that this was coming. Matthew, the developer, was teasing it already on Twitter and social media that there was going to be a big announcement in the showcase. So, or coming up soon, I guess, because you're not supposed to talk about if a Nintendo showcase is happening.
Mhm.
But we could tell something big was coming in, probably a release date. It's coming out May 9th, though.
Good thing. Nice clear day.
Yeah,
That's great.
nothing else is
Yeah,
happening.
nothing else.
That
It's
entire
totally fine.
week is just clear.
Just nothing else is happening, which is perfect. We'll have so much time to
So much time to be a little kitty in a big city.
May 9th is a little bit more of a busy day. I mean, how many do we have a count? Actually,
Yeah,
Jill
let
has
me-
the best list of launches, so I'm looking at
I've got it.
Jill.
Hold on.
I have the prop.
Nice.
Oh my gosh,
Perfect
hi,
kitty.
Harley. Hi, Harley.
So cute.
How are you?
We got Surmount,
loves-
Animal Well, Crow Country, and I'm sure I'm missing like 8 other things, Jill.
Surmount
Those are-
just
Yeah.
moved.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it's on
Surmount
the
moved
3rd.
down to like the
The second.
second.
The 2nd. Okay.
Wait.
Which I'm like, that's really
away
smart.
or
Good
which
for them.
direction?
Closer.
So
Okay,
I
so the se- okay.
have, no, this is April, you guys. I'm talking about May. Starting on the 8th, I'm gonna start there because Indica is
start on the
gonna be
The 8th, the original 9th,
yeah. Indica's gonna I'm gonna jump into that so hard. But
Oh,
on
man,
the
yeah.
9th, we've got like Animal Well, Crow Country, Crypt Master, Gift is on that timeline too. And then Surmount moved out of the way, which is really nice. But now we also have Little Kitty Big City. So
Why
we've
didn't it move
got-
forward though? I feel like you could have moved that.
I know it was a strange move, but
There's also
I'll allow it.
the Vampire Survivors DLC on the 7th. There's Ventures to the Vile and Heading Out, which
On
was a big
7th.
hit from PAX East.
Mhm.
Thank God it plays itself though, right? So it's not too bad.
Fair.
Just put it on, and then you're like, all right, whatever happens, happens.
So like I'm really interested. Like I wish sometimes I could just sit in the corner and be really quiet and listen in on some of these discussions because like is
Like you
that
do on the
something?
GGC bus.
Yeah, just hiding, just hiding. No one can see me. Um, and just like what does that discussion look like when you've seen all of these? All of these games have been, uh, like the release date's been revealed for some time, so there has to have been a discussion. There was definitely a discussion with Surmount moving from May 9th.
Mhm.
So like there was enough time to sort of talk about like, is this really where we want to hit? And I guess they looked at this list and they're like, you know what? There's not a lot of like little kitty big city energy vibes dropping that day. So maybe they're
Yeah.
hoping that the audience is not going to be
Yeah, I think they're
bothered.
hoping maybe the crossover isn't
Yeah.
strong enough that like they'll cannibalize kind of each other's attention. But it makes our lives harder.
Yeah. I have a feeling also like maybe Surmount had an easier time because they weren't locked to a Nintendo showcase. Maybe like I'd
Yeah.
imagine this lineup was locked for quite some time and
Yeah.
Yeah.
you just couldn't do it. And when you have this like a Nintendo stage, you don't want to delay after that.
Mhm.
I mean, unless they do, they could push last minute. We'll say.
Yeah.
I think too, aren't Surmount and Little Kitty Big City repped by Pop Agenda?
So Surmount is also published by Pop Agenda,
Okay.
but yeah, both are being repped by Pop Agenda.
Yeah.
I wonder if too that like has some impact. I don't know how things are made. Like I'm not sure. But, like it's like how many emails can people handle from Pop Agenda?
Yeah,
at one
because they're
time?
not.
I
And
often
that's
find
totally
myself
fair.
I can
asking
handle
that
so many.
when I look at my inbox. How many before something inside of me is changed forever? I don't know. We're gonna find
Change-
out this year, I think.
Change for the better, Janet. Change for the better.
Yeah, here's hoping. But yeah, a lot of games.
Yeah, a lot of games on May
A lot of
9th.
games.
Another highlight for me from the showcase was this is one that I had not seen before, which was really cool, was Refined Self. It's coming out summer 2024. It looks like kind of more of an adventure-y game, like very chill pixel art. It has a sort of, is it sepia tone to it?
Yeah.
And it's a personality test game, and I am a sucker for personality tests. So tell me
Literally,
who I am.
when I saw this, I thought of you immediately. Like literally, I was like, if we were reacting to that, which we can't really do for the most part because we all are working usually or it's also early. But I'm like, if we were reacting to this, it'd be like, oh yeah, this is a Jenny game. Like
Yes.
it has because it's not an RPG, but it has like RPG energy. Like the sensibilities feel like if I like squint my eyes, like this could have been. Oh my god, what's the game with the Eastward with the frying pan and all that? It's like
Yes.
oh,
Oh my
like it has
gosh.
that something about the aesthetic of it. Like
Mhm.
yeah, it just
It's like anime tangential, like
yeah, just a little adventure. Maybe something dark will happen. Like I feel like this is this is very much your lane. But I'm excited for that one too. It looked really cool.
Mhm. Yeah, that looked really, really good to me. There were quite a few. I feel like this for me was a really solid showcase. Like, I think the way that they curated it fit a lot of my taste. But I'd love to hear any highlights from the rest of you in terms of specific games that you were excited about that were actually at the showcase.
I'm gonna jump in. First of all, Sticky Business. Like, who doesn't love Sticky Business? I
Yeah.
think all of us are fans. But that was a shadow drop out today, plus the DLC, so everyone can go play that on Switch now. And it is one of those games that you see and you're like, that has to be on Switch. So the fact that it wasn't on Switch until now is really baffling, but also glad to see it there. The big one for me was Lorelai and the Laser Eyes.
Mhm.
Hell
Coming
yeah.
out
Yeah.
May 16th, y'all. I am so ready. And a lot of the reason why I'm so ready is that I did a preview for this game in getting ready for this particular announcement. So that's up on site right now. And then the game is freaking amazing. So
Nice.
Mike.
Jill Grow, Indie Informer. Is this game? Am I too dumb for this video game? Because it looks like I'm too dumb for this video game,
I don't know.
and that worries me.
I don't know if I'm too dumb for this game. So like I'm questioning whether or not I'm smart enough. I've spoken to other people who played the demo or the I guess demo. It's the preview section and they're smart people but still like human. So
Who's
I'm
the dumbest
guessing-
person you spoke to for this preview?
and are they in this room right now?
Yeah, let's just get it. Let's just get it out there.
So
How
Is it
dumb
Eric
are
Van
we
Allen?
talk-
I think
What's-
that it's
Give me a high-low.
I think it's going to be okay. I think we're getting a lot closer to, say, like a Return of Obra Dinn than.
That's a little smart.
Yeah,
That's pretty
like we're
smart.
getting into that
sounds a
area.
little too smart.
But they
Janet, maybe we stream this together. Two dumb brains make one
We
normal
all
brain.
just-
Lorelai and the laser eyes
Laser
and
eyes.
half of one brain cell.
So yeah, it's an amazing game though. Like the things like, we've seen this game before. We've seen this game in several different places, and I've never really quite understood what it was. Like, because it's just every time it's like, do you remember the maze? Do you remember the maze? I'm like, freaking, I'm never gonna forget that phrase. Thank you. And I'm like, I have no idea what this is. Essentially, imagine the sort of framework gameplay of like a survival horror game. It's like you're not controlling the camera, you've got inventory going on, you can only save it like computer screens every once in a while. They do a fun play on the Resident Evil dog situation, which I really loved because, spoilers, you can pet the dog and I love it. But it's also big Return of the Obra Dinn, like puzzle game. It's a puzzle game, essentially. So I've never seen that dynamic sort of done in that way before, and it is smooth and it is beautiful. It's got those sort of retro vibe like visuals going on that it's so beautiful. It's all like grayscale and blacks until you get to like certain points that are red for some reason. So like some
It's
things
the
look-
laser. I don't know. Something
it's like you see footprints and you're like, those are red. Is that blood? Is that paint? What's happening? Like, I don't trust anything from the immediate like things that happen to me in that game. I'm like, nope, I don't trust anything. I don't trust anything. I don't know what's happening. There's a lot of meta things that are going on. And I'm like, how deep does this go? Is this real life? Am I really it's like is this all happening to me? Am I in a dream? Am I gonna wake up and this is my reality? Like, it's that kind of game. So like, Mike, I really encourage you to check this out because
We'll see, man.
this might be your thing. We might
And you
have
said-
to do. Oh, go
You said
ahead.
it's good, right?
Oh,
Like, you
it's
liked your
so
preview? Okay,
good.
because this looks like
So
the kind
good.
of because this also looks like the kind of game, and like with all love to Annapurna Interactive, because I'm like, oh, this Annapurna always hits. Like I had that moment for a
Mhm.
while, and then I was like, oh, sometimes it doesn't, and then I was like, oh, sometimes it really does. So
Mhm.
Annapurna has become a little bit of a mixed bag for me in recent years, and this. Like looking at this, like I encourage people to check out the footage of this if nothing else, because it's like the trippiest looking thing I've ever
Yeah.
seen. But it looks just art house enough where I'm like, if you trip, oh, you gonna hit every stair on the way down. I'm so scared for you. But like, I
the
like
game-
the big swing of it. So
yeah,
we'll,
the gameplay
I'm-
itself is not that. Like, that was the really fun thing about playing the preview. The
I'm
preview,
intrigued, but also I might be too dumb for this, so it might not matter. I might not be smart enough to even tell you your game isn't good.
Right. It's like we were talking about games that are coming out on May 9th, one of them being Crow Country, and it had a lot of
God, I can't wait.
vibes for that. And I was like, anyone who's excited for Crow Country should be excited for this game.
Okay, horror mixed with like other genre. Even though Crow Country is much more like I am Resident
Straight
Evil,
up.
but like
Mhm.
different. You know, like it's versus
But,
this
like,
is kind of like a mix. But that's
no-
kind of having a moment
I
right
mean,
now.
this kind of is that. It is like I am a straight up, like, they are obviously having a communication and conversation about that type of game, but like, as far as I know, I have not hit anything, and I wouldn't be able to tell you if I had anyway. That's like scary or zombies or death or murder or anything, but it is ominous and unsettling in a perfect way that's getting you to the puzzles to solve things, and yeah, it's real good.
Also from Samogo, which is they made Sayonara Wild Hearts, which I love that game.
Yeah.
Dude,
Obviously,
give me a
this is way
Sayonara
different, but you know.
sequel.
And Year Walk. I didn't play Year Walk though, but
Cool. Yeah, Mike, any highlights from you?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm simultaneously doing this Hades video.
And
That's why I'm like
playing.
glaring out in the distance. Yeah, the two big ones for me are Skim,
Yep.
which finally got a release date. Skim deserves more than a sizzle, really.
It's
Skim
Shim,
looks
though, right?
incredible.
So good.
Shim? Skim?
Shim, right?
Yeah, I
Scream.
think there's like you know, in the back of the throat, like a
Yeah.
the him or something.
So-
I'm
Yeah,
sure.
say it just like that,
Skim.
Jenny. Every
Skim.
time we need to say it.
Yeah, really stoked for this. It is an isometric platformer where you play as a little shadow lad and you're jumping from shadow to shadow. Very excited for this game. Shout out Fearless the Year of Shadow. Skim celebrating properly. And of course, Anton Blast. Shout out to Tony, friend of the show. Anton Blast is essentially a love letter to Wario Land. Think Pizza Tower, but the absurdness ratcheted up to 11. So Anton Blast is such, for lack of a better term, blast. Really excited to dig into the full launch. I played it a few times at various PAXs and private demos and stuff like that. So yeah, those are the two big highlights from the show. Again, like I was just super stoked to see a lot of stuff I've been excited for get release dates. So Skim, July 18th and Anton Blast November 12th.
Another one that got thrown into that sizzle reel that I would have loved to have seen a longer thing for, and like needs way more respect on its name. Duck Detective: The Secret Salami.
Yes.
And I know
yes,
y'all.
yes.
I love the reaction because I know that people who are listening are gonna think that that's me being insincere and just like playing up the bit. It's like, no, that's literally a fire game, and it's coming out May 23rd, and everyone should be playing it because it's really fun.
That dev is so underrated. Kraken Academy rocks.
Yeah.
People need to really go play Kraken Academy if they have not.
Besides that, the last thing on the showcase agenda was a announcement and release date reveal. You don't get a lot of those, so that was fun. Steam World Heist 2 is coming out in August 8th. I really didn't expect. I mean,
I am so unfamiliar with SteamWorld Heist. I will say, could anyone like
so
explain
many Steam
it?
Worlds.
Like,
so
what's
this
SteamWorld
one,
Heist?
This one is the turn-based strategy game.
Okay.
Which, not my jam. I was watching this with Kyle just as we were like ramping up for our work day. I was like, man, if this was Dig 3, I'd be popping off so hard right now. A lot of people love Heist. Heist is great. It's had great reviews. If you're into the turn-based genre, like this is the one for the modern indie scene. So yeah, stoked for the people who are excited for it. But yeah, the SteamWorld games in general, usually great. Maybe think like, where the hell is Headhunter? Because that was announced a long time ago also.
Oh, interesting.
Cool. Yeah, but
yeah.
I think for...
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I think for me, the only one that we haven't touched on is Valley Peaks. It's sort of this climbing game. I actually played a really old like demo of it. I don't know, like 2, maybe even 3 years ago. So this has been like one I have been keeping an eye out for because I really enjoyed my time with that demo. It is a little bit like funky with the physics, but I feel like it's in a purposeful way. Like, so there's that, but maybe if you get motion sick, might not be your jam. But yeah, you're climbing around, you're traversing, you're like, it kind of has a little bit of it's 3D, so it's, I don't want to say it's going to be at this level because most games aren't at this level, but it does have some of that short hike sensibility in terms of the idea of exploring an area, meeting different characters, sort of doing their little like mini side quests, with again a really big focus on climbing paired with that I think is really cool. And I like the stuff that is, again, having just played the demo, which was like a very small slice, like seeing all the things that they now seemingly have added over the years, like little mini game things, like different, not biomes, but like elements to the environment. It looks like it's gonna be really cool. So yeah, looking forward to that. And I'm glad that I keep hearing, more and more updates as we inevitably approach its release date.
Yeah. Which we did not get. That was, I think, one of the only things where I was like, oh, that's a 2024 window and nothing else. So good luck for that. We'll see how that goes in the future.
Good luck for that.
Good luck for that.
That was so ominous. Everything about that, you're like, and yet, when is it coming out? They don't even know. I'm like sweating. Okay. Yeah. Best wishes. Valley Peaks team. I know you're listening. Good luck. You're gonna need it. I don't know.
We believe in you, Heart.
Yes, we do believe in you. Well, that'll that ominous feeling. Let's carry that to the next topic of show. Trying to segue this.
I loved it. That was perfect.
Thank you very much. So what we thought would be really interesting is go into an event or kind of a series of events that have happened probably, I think now about a month ago, that really happened sort of in their heyday a month ago. there's still aftermath that we're like dealing with, but it's a good time to do a retrospective of what folks have been calling essentially Gamergate 2.0. Um, when we post this, I'm just also saying this so that when I listen back, um, we'll also just put some links below too, so that you can not only like read some of the articles yourself, but also maybe like a link to take this so that you can also find any resources if you listen and you're feeling like you need maybe a little extra support after hearing some of it, because it is kind of heavy. I think probably one of the heavier topics we will have discussed since starting the podcast. But it's important to talk about because this has impacted not only developers in the industry, but also I think we've seen some of it come into like communities and content creators, streamers, and we've seen those shockwaves kind of ebb throughout the industry. So thought it'd be important to talk about today. For folks who may not know, because Gamergate 1.0 was now 10 years ago, which is kind of wild to think about. Gamergate itself was something that happened 10 years ago, I think around 2014, 2015 ish. And essentially, it was stated to be about ethics, quote, ethics in journalism and games, but really it was an opportunity for really like online echo chambers, misogynists, and a lot of just like white supremacists to come out of the woodwork and use that as an excuse to really spread hate and gatekeep the industry. Recently, there was an incident about a month ago. The inciting incident was a company consultant discovering a Steam group dedicated to quote detecting games that were worked on by a company called Sweet Baby Inc. And Sweet Baby Inc. is a narrative design company. Alyssa, is it Mercante? Mercant?
Yes.
Mercante. Alyssa Mercante did a really wonderful article titled What Sweet Baby Inc. Doesn't Do. Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't do what some gamers think it does. And it details how Sweet Baby Inc. is a narrative design company. They've worked on releases like Alan Wake 2, Suicide Squad, God of War Ragnarok. And these folks who have made the Steam page trying to detect other games that they have worked on has the goal of encouraging people to avoid these games because they deemed that SBI has a woke agenda, that they are trying to ruin games and the industry by forcing diversity, equity, and inclusion into these titles. That's all crap. Let's just
Yep.
kind of put it out there. That's just crap. And so, what's happened as a result of this discovery of the page, when one of the company's consultants said, "Hey, why does Steam allow this to exist? It's got the theme is it's a hate group. Steam shouldn't allow this to exist." That Steam group then picked up a lot of traction because the followers of that group decided to fight back. They started a Discord, and it began sort of a firestorm, I would say, on Twitter in particular, but across different social platforms. And let's say a very misinformed firestorm again. This is a huge topic. Honestly, it's a bit hard to encompass, I think, an entire podcast. But what I thought would be really valuable to do is talk about some of maybe the reactions that we've had as we've looked and seen what has happened over the past month and a half, 2 months maybe. And then really the goal is how can listeners see what's going on? We talk about it so you can identify when it may be happening. And then what can you do to not encourage and maybe even combat, like defer some of this from happening in your own communities. So I guess let's start with maybe some reactions. I'm not sure, how did you all see this happening in real time? Do you, especially as folks in press, did you have friends impacted by some of what was going on? I'd love to hear just what were your experiences over the last month.
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, I have I'm actually not very good at social media. That's not great for my job, but I personally don't like to be on there for personal reasons. It is a work tool that I use, and a lot of the times I have like I'm not afraid of banning people. I am not afraid of muting things. I am not afraid of muting certain words. So some of the bad actors that really kind of kicked this off and kept it going, I already had completely ripped out of my social media experience. So it wasn't until people started getting really like attacked, that I started seeing things, and I'm starting to hear rumors of like people are going after Sweet Baby Inc. and like why like the woke agenda. And I think the thing that's really interesting that you point out, that I also want to speak to people who maybe are confused about what is going on, is that a lot of the times, I mean, a lot of the times, like all the time, if you have a position that is based off of things that are not rational, things that are not humane, for lack of a better word, you have a tendency to try to couch it in terms and concepts that sound perfectly reasonable. GamerGate
Mhm.
1, I was around for. I can't believe it's been 10 years. I know that Janet said something about someone not even knowing what that was, and it blew my brain. Um, they couched it, as you rightly said, in terms of ethics. But really, what kicked that off was the ex of a developer saying she was sleeping around. And that's kind of how it all started, to try to claim that this person who was being successful only got there because she was sleeping
Mhm.
around. And like, really, that shows a lot of the root of what was making people angry, was like, there's a woman who is successful in this industry, and how are we going to bring her down? But let's not couch it as we don't want women in the industry. Let's couch it as it's
Mhm.
not ethical that people should are able to like get to the top by sleeping around, even though the original claim was by an ex who is already not a great source, because you don't know how that relationship obviously didn't end well, and we don't know what motives they have. And any journalist who came across that initial claim would probably not have treated it with any sort of seriousness. So the people who are trying to lead these escapades have a tendency to not hold themselves to the same standards that they are trying to pretend like they are hiding behind. And the real insidiousness of pretending like things like this are for the good of the games, to represent real players in player the way players really want to be represented, or ethics in journalism, like, you lose the sort of real kind of roots of why what's happening. So like, people who aren't at all sexist or misogynistic or uh white supremacists or anything
Mhm.
of that nature, start to hear this, and they see maybe a one-sided thing with all this rhetoric that sounds trumped up, and so they're like, I don't really know what's going on. Maybe this is something that I should be worried about. Maybe Sweet Baby Inc. really is this big boogeyman that's like controlling, like pulling strings and controlling the games that I love, and that's why things are happening. But um it is important to talk about that sort of thing, because it is so easy to get swept up in the kind of false narratives that are being created.
Mhm.
But you can definitely see it when uh, uh, you see things like people getting harassed who are journalists, who are also women, uh, and you start to like, okay, where is your ethics conversation coming in when you're just going on someone's social media and calling them every name in the book? Personally, the closest person to me who got this kind of firestorm just by saying like, hey, essentially they were like, this is not okay, we can't be harassing people, don't fall for this kind of rhetoric. We're like, for days and days afterwards, we're getting like, yeah, like threats. They were getting like harassed all over the internet, and like, that was a person very close to me. And it is scary, and it is very sad when you can't help or protect or stop this from happening. And even though I maybe optimistically believe that a lot of the people in there were probably not bad people, and probably just heard this weird twisted side of the story and didn't know the full history of what's going on. Like, I don't know if that's just I want to believe in the goodness of humanity, but that's why it's so important for us to talk about it here on this show, so we can untangle sort of some of those. And like, essentially, if you're in a position where you are reaching out and harassing literally anyone, if you're making someone's life worse for having been in it, you're not on the right side.
Mhm.
I think it's interesting that you bring up. I mean, you brought up a lot of great points, Jill. I'm trying to see what order to even go in, but I think
Yeah.
the thing that I mean, I kind of echo everything you said, except for the thinking maybe most people aren't bad because I have a much more negative view on things. I mean, obviously, I think there definitely is, you know, there's a lot of research and articles that have been done about the video games to right wing extremism pipeline,
Mhm.
which is a really unfortunate, I think, sector the of gaming as a hobby and as like a cultural touchstone. And again, that's such a big topic that like I would without also just having readings to refer back to, it's a lot harder to I think go into that in depth. But that's definitely I think I think when we see things like the original GamerGate, this like GamerGate 2.0, Sweet Baby Ink Detective stuff, it is like very much like a reminder of how present that is, unfortunately, within this hobby. It's just something that has culturally continued to expand, unfortunately. But I really want to echo what you said in regards to the sort of fake narrative that gets pushed out of like,
Mm.
it's not that I hate everybody, it's that like this, that, and the third. And it's like, no, it is that. And like to your point, to what degree are people aware of that? That I will never really know. Like, I don't have the psychological, insight to be able to really tell. Like, do some of these people really believe what they're selling? Like, how many people believe what they're selling, and how many people know that they're selling something? I don't know what that line is, but because the impact is the same, I kind of put them all in the same bucket. I'm like, I don't know how you got here, but you're blocked. It's that kind of
Yep.
situation. But a lot of things have come up from this. I mean, I think too, one thing I want to encourage people about, because I saw these conversations happening with the like, kind of like, what does Sweet Baby Inc. actually do? And like their consulting goes far beyond DEI, which stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. For those who aren't familiar with the terminology, this is when you get like, a big part of creating any work that includes actually it really includes anything, even fictional stuff where it's like, hey, we're making up a sci-fi planet, we want nothing to do with whatever, we're making up words. You have to get consultants to help check, does this word actually exist already? Is this actually a word for like a group that you aren't aware? Like, even when you're trying to like completely divorce your work from reality, you still have to consider reality because your work exists in reality. But again, all these things, unfortunately, you're not gonna like, we can have the most perfect conversation about these topics and show it to like everyone who's in people's mentions, and it like won't matter. Like, maybe it would change like two people's minds, but like it just won't matter because they'll just keep moving the goalposts. And I know because I've had conversations with people where for the most part I try to really like engage directly. Sometimes I'll engage directly if I genuinely think this person has a comment that is like well intentioned, where they might like genuinely just be ignorant and not like hateful. But like honestly, 9.9 times out of 10 turns out that person's hateful. It just took two more steps to get there. But I have engaged in those conversations, and so often it's just more moving the goalpost.
Mhm.
Oh well, we saw things like with in regards to Alan Wake 2, one of the creators, I forget the names of all these because it's been so many weeks ago, was like, hey, I'm out here saying you guys are incorrect. Like Saga Anderson, the Black co-league lead of that game, Saga was never white. Like, we didn't get consultants and they were like, make Saga a Black woman. Like, literally, like, this is how I wrote this story. I'm debunking this. People who were like, waving around, oh my god, they forced diversity in Elwick too. See, Saga, they won't care that info. They won't be like, oh man, my bad, I was wrong. They'll just say, yeah, well, I bet they made her Black initially because they knew that it would appeal to, like, they'll just make up a new thing. So then I think that's kind of been one of the big frustration points of this. But to like swing it back to kind of what I originally wanted to come out here and say is that like, I also don't want this to be like DEI needs to like not be talked about or seen as like a dirty thing or lesser work. Like, I totally acknowledge and respect the breadth of work Sweet Baby Inc. and plenty other consulting firms do, but there's nothing wrong with doing diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think it's a little dangerous to be like, oh, it's not, that's all they do. Like, I think pushing that narrative also has repercussions. But yeah, back to Jenny's original question. I've seen a lot of peers get the troll smoke, get the YouTube thumbnails, get the whatever, you know, and I've just been like waiting in the wings for my turn. Like I've gotten a little bit of smoke, nothing crazy, but like, yeah, I don't know. Again, if you're the more boxes you check on the quote unquote diversity, aka like not straight white man side of the things, like the more of a target you are. Why is that? Right? We know the answer. And they'll say, oh no, it's not. Like, yeah, like that is how it is, unfortunately. Because again, nothing's divorced from anything. So like we create in a society that is full of issues. And those issues will come in here because it's the same situation. So yeah, it's tough. It's unfortunate because you know there's like not really anything you can do because it's like, well, if you can't like logic this out, like I don't know, I'm standing here, you're gonna stand there and yell at me. I don't know. Like it's tough because I think the only thing that really can be done is trying to have like that united front of, hey, this is the industry we want to create, moving towards creating that industry, being vocal about that without necessarily needing to go toe to toe with like, you know, GamerGate 2.0 stan at, you know, I love Xbox, hate PlayStation.com, you know, like whoever. Like, I don't think it necessarily needs to be like an interpersonal stand, but things like, you know, that creator from Alan Wake talking about, hey, this isn't, I want to speak to what my vision was and how so many people on the internet are getting it wrong to try to use it for this thing. You know, people supporting DEI initiatives, like allow, you know, being, I think, kind of like a model of like what we want to embody in the industry, I think will ultimately be the most powerful and productive way moving forward, rather than necessarily, no shade to anyone that wants to like go toe to toe with someone on Twitter, because like I've done it, we've all done it at some point, and like, you know, and if I'm not doing that, I'm probably just turning to someone in my life and being like, look at this idiot, I can't stand this person. You know, I just because I don't respond doesn't mean I don't have like thoughts, you know. It's just that like you kind of got to pick your battles. But I think those have been the good things, reaching out interpersonally to peers affected to see like what ways you can support. But yeah, I mean, I am just standing here and waiting for people who claim that they will boycott and exit to exit. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm like, I'm waiting for y'all to actually be about it, because so many are like, oh, I'm not gonna. Okay, well, do it then. Do it then, because I can't queue up in Helldivers anyway. Do it then. Do it. Get out. Get out.
Yeah.
Get out. Fine. Like I don't really care about it. And then yeah, so it's just it's a bunch of logical nonsense that can be really frustrating. But I've it's been nice to see people kind of band together and continue to like walk arm in arm in the what is it, Red Rover, right? In the Red Rover of the internet.
Yeah, I think what's been really interesting, and there's another article that we'll link that The Verge wrote, essentially talking about how this return, like Gamergate 2.0, has been weaker, and you know, in some ways it's been louder, but the ways that it's gone down, you can definitely tell like more people are standing up to them, more people are just kind of blocking, and while we are seeing people go toe to toe, there's also just more people uniting, like you said, to just not deal with it, and not take it, which has been kind of nice to see. Sorry, Mike, did you want to?
Yeah, no, I think while it may be weaker this time around compared to the first round 10 years ago, I think because it's how much we've all grown on, for like a better term, the good side of things, of where we are now 10 years later, that we do have a voice, that we do have a stand, that we are not afraid to protect our own. Just to like piggyback to like the initial question, initial conversation a little bit, like it's vile, it's disgusting, it's infuriating, it's disappointing. I've had friends and colleagues affected, not going to name names, obviously. Even like just expressing support and whatever publicly on Twitter, I've gotten attacked also. But like Janet said, like it's so easy to like hit the reply button and want to go toe to toe, especially as a scrappy motherfucker from Yonkers. Like I'm ready for a fight. But it's more entertaining to mute them and report and see what happens later.
Yeah.
Because I'm cynical like that, I guess. But yeah, it's just it's I just when I saw articles start getting posted on some of these harmful websites about friends, and just some of the nonsense that these editorial pieces, if you want to call it that, we're spewing, that really put me over the edge. Yeah, man, it's just like, I'm grateful that we're out here supporting and being loud and not afraid to speak up, because Janet, like you were saying, like that's what we got to do nowadays. We gotta, I don't know, we gotta put up or shut up, I guess. Like we're trying to create a better space for not only our colleagues and the people that work in the space, but like also just gamers in general. We want the community to be a positive, respectful, loving, accepting place. And yeah, we can only really do that by standing up for our own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as a straight white dude, like I'm gonna talk like I thought like maybe not like I have
For
like
the
a
first
shield
time
or
ever.
whatever. For the first time ever.
Finally.
Finally, the straight white man talks.
Save me, white man. I'm just
But,
joking,
like,
by the way. That was a joke.
no, I know. Like I guess like don't think you have some sort of shield or whatever around you, and or don't think it's not your fight. Like, no, fucking stand up for your friends, stand up for your colleagues. Like, we're all in this together. It's not about skin color, it's not about gender, it's not about how you see yourself or see others. Like, it's about doing what's right and shutting down bullshit. I know I cursed a lot in that last segment. I've been trying to do better the past few fucking weeks, but like it makes me angry.
Yeah, I will say, like, the people who are being targeted, like, it started with Sweet Baby Inc. But then I think the attention was then directed towards just other sort of colleagues, especially women and people of color, especially Black women who were standing up. I know that like Black Girl Gamers specifically was an organization that was targeted. They also started going after particularly community managers who were like especially women community managers. So the people who are being targeted for a reason because they are seen as lesser than by this group, seen as easier targets that they don't anticipate people defending. And so I think it is really important as people, if you can stand up and say something, that's huge. One thing that I wanted to flag though is I would love to see, like, in terms of just what can we do as a whole industry. I think about this similar to, we talked about like greenwashing last year, or not last year, last episode. And it kind of is similar where it's like, I think we can only do so much as individuals. And I really would love for the companies and platforms that do have the power and say, like, way more than one person, I would love for them to continue and to start in some cases actually just flat out saying like, we see this happening and it's not okay. Because it can be really easy for someone to target an individual who's standing up for their friend. It's not as easy for them to be like, I'm going to target Xbox. I'm going to target PlayStation. It becomes much harder for someone to, or for a group of hateful people to go against a company. There's a whole different degree. They'll say, we'll boycott, or they'll do things, but it becomes way more powerful when companies stand up. And I think just the game industry as a whole, I think should push towards more of that. Because I think it's great we all stand up for each other, but I want companies to stand up for us.
I mean, the real thing, not to like single out this individual, but like the real stance would be if Keighley opens up Summer Game Fest with something like this, and it's not going to happen, but like that's what needs to happen.
I'm like, when I turn to the corporation, normally you don't really see a face. This time I do, and it's like, I know you're not going to do anything. It's like, like that kind of sucks. But again,
I mean, it was like all of us holding out hope about him saying something about the layoffs at the Game Awards. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think to that point too. I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, the not E3, SGF, face of gaming conversation. Like, that's obviously kind of its own can of worms that cuts both ways, right? Because obviously, like, on one hand, like, Keighley is definitely like a hyper scrutinized individual. On the other hand, there's some really valid criticism there. So it's like, at the end of the day, like, I think it would take a long time for like Keighley to become like quote unquote liked holistically. But at the same time, it's like, doesn't mean you can't move things forward. And also because this is like kind of has that corporate vibe that like you're talking about, Jenny, like what's kind of interesting when it comes to corporations is there's two sides to it. On one hand, it's like, I mean, a corporation at the end of the day, again, what is the motive? It's to make money. So it's always going to be about like making money. I mean, I think back to like that Michael Jordan quote about, I guess people wanted him to like stand up for something, and he was like, no, I'm not going to do this because Republicans buy shoes too. And it's like, like that was Jordan's vibe. And there's a lot to say about Michael Jordan. If you watch the documentary, I think you learned a lot about Michael Jordan. So that being said, like a corporation, it is always going to be that kind of greenwashing hollowness. But in that, like, there can still be some power, even if it's like, you don't even have to do that much to be like, oh, this is a step up. Like, I think of FIFA, the soccer organization FIFA, which is a very documentedly corrupt organization, like capital C corrupt organization. There's so much documentation about that. That being said, though, they had the I remember their push. I think it was FIFA, not like MLS or anything. I think it was FIFA holistically. They were like, say no to racism campaign, and you see this in, I think basketball has some degree of this too. Like different, it's like, oh, like, is that going to stop racism? No, it's just like a little hashtag, but it's something. And I think especially with games being so like having become such a pipeline for so many people, I think even something like that where it's like, oh, I mean, like, if you put hashtag stop racism, is that really going to stop racism? It's like, no, but like, I think just even making that statement can be something. It's more than nothing, which is what I think in gaming we have now. So, yeah, I'll take even, again, something that Hollow would definitely still get scrutinized, but at least it's like moving, I think, in a good direction. So from any of these companies, even a vague tip of the calf would go a long way, because again, I think it's kind of that, if you're not out like repping what's right, people that want to believe you could be wrong are gonna believe that. And I see that a lot with, like, especially working in the space where, it's games. While it's gotten more diverse, it is still a lot of white guys that dominate the space, that are at the top of the creator space, the top of the streaming space, the top of pretty much all the spaces. One thing I notice, especially as someone that is, maybe one of the few like women, or one of the few people of color, or one of the few women, or whatever, sometimes when I meet an audience, it's not as nice as the audience my colleague had, even though it's the same audience. Why is that? Because the truth is, it's like, no one noticed that these people were racist and sexist because you didn't have any people of color or women there. So it's like, okay, like, and I think because those things get revealed, I think unfortunately a lot of people that are hateful and consume gaming content like to think that, like, well, maybe this white guy might think what I think, or he might not be like so uptight about it, So it's kind of even more, to like Mike's point, important for people that are in that more sociologically privileged position to be like, hey, just so you know, I don't rock with this ideology, because unfortunately, people that do rock with that ideology might see people that look like them and think, well, maybe this is an okay space to say something like a little bigoted, and like no one's gonna check me, because like, it's kind of that classic like sociological thing of like, when there's certain things people will say only when other people aren't in the room kind of vibe. And I think you see that a lot in the like creator to audience space, and I think that's also why, like, for me it's a little easier to curate my personal space, because I'm like, I mean, you got to be other than people like coming into just to troll. It's like, you got to be really, I don't know, messed up to like want to even consume my content, because like who I am, what I look like, what I stand for. Like, why would you be here? Like, you can go to so many other bigoted gaming creators and get, the same kind of coverage, at least on like topics, obviously not the quality, but and like get your fill that way. So it's like, okay, like, so kind of there was that the only thing I think we have really going for us is that almost self-curation of like, sure, that makes it harder maybe to grow and gain popularity and gain connect and all that, but at least it's like, okay, when I'm building my own thing, that'll probably be an easier to curate space, because it kind of starts off pre-curated, because a lot of people that do have those ideologies would never pull up, while they might pull up to like my white colleague's stream and be like, maybe this is fine. Anyway,
no, I legitimately
hashtag end racism.
Yeah, hashtag end racism. I legitimately saw that with a friend in the space who is a white male, who during the middle of all of this had like, I think it was like a quote tweet or something, responding to someone who's like, who should we follow in this corrupt journalistic field, like that isn't about the woke agenda or whatever. And they're like, they quote tweeted my friend, and they're like, here's a person, and it's just literally,
that's so scary.
It was literally just because that was a white male, And this person is 100% not like against anything. Like they're for diversity, they're for women, they're for all of these things, and this person literally didn't know anything about what his content was and what he supported, literally just sharing his work because he was a white dude and assuming that that white dude would also share this bigot's views on why women shouldn't be in the industry or why people of color shouldn't be in the industry, which was a conversation I had to have like with this person. They reached out to me. I'm like, I can't believe that this is happening. What should I do? You know, like these are the conversations we're having in the background. I think also Janet made a really good point about like the money, and we should talk about like who's making money off of this and systemically what is pushing these sorts of narratives, because
Mhm.
That
there
YouTube ad
are
revenue.
yeah,
That Twitter verified revenue.
Yep.
there are more like I want to believe the best in people, but there are 100% there are people out there who are creating content who know that the more incendiary, the more terrible, the more angry it makes their audience, the more money they are making from it. They may not believe in any of it. They may be secretly laughing at all of these people who are like watching their content and believing this crap. Um I don't want to actually talk about any of these people because I don't want to give them that kind of uh any sort of recognition really,
Mhm.
but they know that this is like they know that they're washed up. They know that they're not really in this industry anymore. They know that they are going to get views if they say stuff like this, and this is what's going to get them back into the spotlight. So they say stuff like this and they send Twitter mobs out and they harness that sort of control and that sort of moment in the sunshine in order to like, oh, and while you're here, why don't you pay me for whatever thing is going on currently? Or like you don't even have to do that. You can just be like a YouTuber whose actual revenue is built off of people coming to see your stuff, and that is it is so geared towards making people angry. Like getting people to come to your site if you're saying something horrible is so much easier than saying, "Hey, I really like this thing and let's check it out." Like
Mhm.
I know this personally as a journalist because I have written articles that were, "Hey, this really cool little indie game is happening and everyone should go check it out right now." And I've written things that are like, "This company is being sued for a thing." And I know which one gets millions of views and I know which one doesn't. If you
Damn,
are
you get millions of views? Hold
I know. I
on.
was like,
I've
wow.
I've gotten like back at Game Informer, the amounts of views that you get for that sort of thing is really big, and you have to be as a journalist. That's where ethics really do come in. You have to be very aware of what you are saying and how you are saying it, and you want to be catchy and you want to catch people's eyes, but at the same time, like no one out here in the journalistic space is trying to trick you into uh clicking on something. Like
I
it's
mean, it's eliciting negative emotion for profit at the expense of marginalized individuals in the space. And once again, I'll use the term, it's utterly goddamn disgusting.
yeah.
Because,
Mhm.
Jill, like you said, it's all washed up individuals who don't have a place in the industry anymore, who are getting their Elon bucks just by rallying folks up and making people angry.
Mhm.
And it is funny, like you talking about your friend. It's really funny how much that showcases how goddamn surface level it all is.
Yeah.
So, just to wind this down, I would say. So we've offered some more specific tips. Like, I think both Jill and Janet mentioned, like, don't actually amplify the folks, that you are, if you are going toe to toe, don't necessarily uh, actually tweet them or engage with their profiles directly. If you must, maybe screenshot, don't refer to them by name, don't give them the dollars that they crave and the
I
eyes
have,
that they
but do
crave.
do as I say, not as I do. Just every now and then, it's like, you know how like you might leave like a dead rat out to scare the other rats. Like that's my thing. But
I
like
do that so
I'm
often.
out here though. Like you should, because that's the other thing too. Like just to quickly add to that, Jenny. Like one thing that like it's tough for. I've never really posted this because also like I know like not every single person who follows me is gonna see it anyway, so it's not as useful. But like I'm like, hey, you guys see people coming for me? I mean, if y'all want to step in, I mean, you have your own, right to do that. Like, I can't really tell you what to do with your time, but like, don't do it. Like, I have, way more followers, so I'm inherently a bigger person on the internet. When you're again, who do they like to beat up on? Someone that's too small, someone that they feel like can't fight back, even if it's, again, I'm not saying that's true, but it's just like I hate seeing when like one of my followers gets dogpiled by even though it's like 15 people, which is like low in the grand scheme of things. When you've never had, which like I can't fully relate to because I've always been growing on social media, like that's been like what I've done since I like started. When you don't get people who like reply to you much, and you suddenly have 15 of the worst people you've ever encountered, it's really overwhelming. Like it is
Yeah, it's
so
awful.
overwhelming. And yeah, I feel like I don't know, don't be afraid to like delete the tweet, step back. Like they'll forget you a lot faster than they might forget, me or Jill or Mike or anybody, because it's like, oh, we're inherently, we could get that
Internet
article written.
celebrities.
Yeah, like someone could write that,
Yeah.
we can get the head ass articles written about us. Like they're not going to write a head ass article on like Zabufu92, who like just likes my content and is trying to be like a bud. Like that's, I think, a dangerous thing that I've seen people fall into. So yeah, watch out for that.
Yeah. And also one thing, if just as a general thing, if you find yourself being targeted in this kind of way, takethis.org has a nice guide to like how to lock down your accounts. Where can you go for help? I've helped folks where they're like, hey, I can't deal with the comments. I need help cleaning up my social media. If you have the capacity and you can be a friend to someone and be like, hey, I can help go and sift through these comments, delete them, report them for you, so you do not have to do it. You can separate yourself. That's a really good thing to do if you know someone who's being targeted. Especially, I think it was Jita who posted a tweet about this or said something where it was like, and also if you're in the space online where you see stuff, don't just pay attention to the bad things, hype up the good stuff. That's one of the most effective ways to drown out this kind of rhetoric, is uplifting the Black women in games, the trans folks in games, the CMs who are doing the hard work of listening to everyone's feedback and delivering it to the dev teams effectively. Know that there are a lot of people doing great work, and we should just shower them with all the love so that the rest of the trash are left in the dust. I don't know if any of you had any other like tips for folks that we wanted to end on.
Something that which were we talking about the same person? Gita, what's Gita's name? Jackson?
Yeah, Gita.
Okay,
Yeah.
Gita. So they had also put up a tweet that we can link, looking into camera because I'm not the one that links stuff. I'm like, oh, is it okay?
Yes, we can.
That we can link, which is, this is kind of, I think, more on like a team member kind of thing. But again, different people listening that might have like, this might be applicable, where they had tweeted out, at the very least, take this moment to discuss within the marginalized members of your development teams how you can keep them safe. I highly recommended joindeleteme.com. And I think that's just like a way to like clean up your like content, like remove like certain, try to like avoid getting your personal data like leaked or whatever, which like those kind of things happen all the time. Like I get the Capital One alerts of like, oh, your email's on the dark web again. And I'm like, again? Like, I feel like, why are you always telling me that it's on the dark web? And how do I make it stop? Like, I don't know. But, anything that can kind of help with that. Yeah, I think too, I mean, you kind of already touched on the filters, but specifically with Twitter, which I know Twitter has only gotten worse in the sense of like, again, we don't got to go into like who Elon is as a
We don't have to go
person
back
and
to
the way and
episode
how involved this man every day. As someone that sits in a Tesla, like every day, I'm like, please sell the company, sell the company, sell the company. I don't want to be involved. I want to be less involved with you. Why are you here? Anyway, so obviously, Elon has his own views that seep into design, which is where like the freaking ethics of software engineering come in. But within Twitter, even now, there are a lot of different settings you can do that, it's not always just like open or private account. Like my account is very like no default profiles, no like newly made like I got really in the weeds of my privacy settings, and I talk about that all the time, so I encourage people to do that if you haven't already. And yeah, I mean, I personally, again, I'm a big fan of blocking. A lot of people say, no, I'm just gonna mute because like I don't want to give them the satisfaction, or maybe you kind of want the engagement because I know some of y'all have told me that you do. Which hey, if you want to do that, that's on you. But I like to block because it also removes people from responding to me, and thus it removes the odds of someone who follows me like seeing like trash. Like I feel like if
Yeah.
I can't see the trash, like that's nice for me. But what about like if Jill comes to my page? And at the end of the day, it's not your fault if people are like harassing you. I'm just saying that like the benefit of blocking is that you kind of remove them completely from your view, and also anyone that kind of engages with your work as well. But yeah, I mean, support the people that are doing good work. Send love to those affected and just kind of like keep it rocking, I feel like. But yeah, it can get pretty wild out there. And admittedly, like I have been privileged enough not to experience a lot of these things firsthand. So the benefit is like, yay, that's nice for me. The con is I don't have like even more specifics to get into for like the degree to which these like hate campaigns unfortunately run. But um yeah, it's a lot of nonsense for people wanting to make a lot of money. So I don't know. That is what it is.
Mike or
I
Jill?
would, I would say just to piggyback off what Janet was just saying, just keep supporting folks, whether it is a friend, a colleague, or somebody you look up to. A friendly tweet goes a long way. Or if you're more comfortable and you know the person privately, a DM also helps. But if you do end up getting caught in a whirlwind of disgusting replies, don't fall for the bait. Like Janet, Jill, Jenny was saying, block, report, just ignore the noise. That's all it is. It's just noise. Just try and take advantage. Um, it can be exhausting, so it's also okay to step away. You don't have to perpetually live on the internet. So if you need to step away, if you need to go on private, if you need to delete the app for a bit, that's totally fine. I feel like I had one more thing, but yeah, just take care of folks. Also, aside from like checking in on folks and whatnot, like amplify the work and the coverage that a lot of marginalized voices are putting out there. Like we mentioned Alyssa earlier, like Sigma boosts a lot of Alyssa's work. Alyssa is like one of the best out there. That like her work on Kotaku is absolutely remarkable, even outside of all this stuff. Like if you see something cool, like signal boost it, get it out in the world, just get more eyes on the content that's worth watching and consuming, instead of a lot of the garbage that's out there.
Yeah, and
I
shout
think
out to quick
No,
shout
go
out
ahead.
to Khalif, who did a really
Yes.
good
Yep.
interview with Alyssa.
Fantastic.
And Khalif is another one who has been really good about he's a great podcaster, content creator in general, but he's been especially good about covering this particular issue. If anyone is interested in listening to more, we'll link that interview in the notes.
Yeah. I think too, um, some of it for me, some of the things you can do to kind of combat this is to keep in mind there's good out there. There's good in the world. There's good in the gaming space. Keep an eye on that. Combat the urge, perhaps, to give up. Combat the urge to say, this is terrible, this is toxic, there's nothing more we can do, everything is screwed anyway. I know it is so tempting to be like, it's so big, there's nothing I can do. Just stand there and be a little light. If that's all you can do is just, if you're just a tiny little match in the darkness, like it's still a huge deal that you were there. And don't give up. Don't give up.
Off that also, I would say, and this kind of correlates to all of the layoff conversations that we were having, if you are somebody looking in, like wanting to get into games and like really want a career in games, don't let this discourage you. Like Jill was saying, there's plenty of good. It's just sometimes the bad is noisier and louder than the good, and we're trying our best to fix that. And if you stick with us, you could be a part of that change and can help us out.
Sometimes it's funny because it's like I think one of the best ways to kind of piss off the other side is take up more space and be more joyful. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a really, really great point.
Which is what they initially requested in GamerGate
Yeah.
1. They're like,
I mean, can we
go
also,
code,
like,
make
give-
your own game. Then they're like, your own game became a game I wanted to play, and now I'm mad that you made me play it. Like,
we,
what? Like, okay.
Can we also give Alyssa a shout out for all the clapbacks? I just want to like just give her kudos.
I will say, for someone, you know, we're like, don't go toe to toe. Alyssa does go toe to toe and makes me wish I could do like half as good.
Dude,
as she does,
Alyssa
to
makes
be very
us New Yorkers
honest.
proud, man. Alyssa's a New Yorker through and through, and I
Yeah.
appreciate the ever living hell out of her.
Yeah, the clapbacks and shit posting are just
Incredible.
choice.
Yeah, I've been amplifying a lot of that. Yeah, I mean, like, do what you need to, right? Like, if that's
Right.
working for her, and I know, you know, that's not the only, like, source of support that, like, Alyssa's, like, leaning on for
Yeah.
that either. So, yeah, I think it makes sense, and it, you know, again, you gotta, it's like kind of like salt, you know, it's like you put too much, you might get, you know, you're gonna get lost in the weeds, but like, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I like went after somebody and they deleted their account, and I felt good that day. I don't know, does that make me a bad person? Maybe, but I don't know, you know, I don't know, write a little article about it that I won't read. So
God, I dare somebody.
I wouldn't, that's not go, it's not go wild. I don't dare
take that
somebody, but it's fine. No one has noticed me, or I don't know, whatever. I've been lucky, I guess.
Well, again, thanks for listening to this bit more serious talk. We'll have the resources linked all in the show notes. Now, I would love to see what has been taking up space in your weeks and your time, and what have y'all been playing amidst everything going on? What has been kind of taking your mind off of things? Janet, maybe you've got a prop, so would you like to go first?
Yeah, the
Ring,
Switch
ring,
called,
Ring,
and
ring.
I'm like, you know what? I can't let it go to voicemail again. I decided to pick up. And play Stitch. This got I love and it's out now moment from I feel like Nintendo is kind of like, that's very their lane a little bit. So yeah, this game called Stitch hit Nintendo today, but it was on mobile before. It was on Apple Arcade before, correct? Which it's funny because when you mentioned like in Discord, you're like, oh, I was playing that on mobile already. I thought to myself like, oh, if it was on Apple Arcade, I would have already played it. It wasn't Apple Arcade, so I got exposed by myself. Like I'm not, my hand's not on the Apple Arcade pulse, which I need to keep up my Apple Arcade influencer image, so I will work on that in future episodes. But in case you missed it, Stitch is an embroidery puzzle game. It's kind of, it is like kind of that paint by numbers sort of like, you select, like the tutorial starts off with, okay, fill in 2 spaces. Like there's a number 2 and it shows like 2 squares, and then you like click and drag. It's like, cool, you filled it in. And then it kind of grows from there, where you might have like an area that has like a 4, 3, and a 2. And then the puzzle aspect of it is figuring out how to fill in the associated like numbers and spaces within like the context of the other numbers. So really, if you think of even a puzzle game like there's one I really like called, I think one of you might know it, the Cats Organized Neatly game.
Yeah.
Oh, the Cats and Quilts game.
No, I think it's Cats Organized Neatly.
I
It's
think
like
it is
the
called that.
series. Yeah, it's the franchise where it's like they have dogs organized neatly.
Yeah.
Like cats organized neatly. Yeah. And they're all like Tetris shaped.
Yeah, and you're kind of just trying to fit them into little
Yeah.
spots. This
Yes.
also, like when I first started playing this.
I played a physical version of that.
Oh, from the same people, or just like the same idea, but like physical?
It's a game. It's a game where you stack little plastic cats.
Oh, that's kind of different though, because this is
Did
like
it,
you're
like,
putting them.
You have to organize them and stack
Oh, it's
them.
called that. Yeah. I've seen
I
that
think so,
too.
yeah.
Did it fall
yeah,
off the back of a truck? Like, what's up, Mike?
Listen, PAX Unplugged has some weird shit on the show floor.
that is always going to be true. But yeah, it's kind of in that vein. It sort of like playing it like for the first like few, like I did like the first puzzle. It kind of reminded me of like, it made me think of this feels like Picross if you like if math scares you a little bit, because it's the puzzles are not as complex. There's also a little bit more sort of subtle guidance in the fact that you are like embroidering, you know, like little animals or little like creatures or whatever. And you can kind of tell like, okay, well, this section might be like its foot, so it's probably gonna be like this set of numbers if it's like overlapping sections. So there's like, you get a little bit more of a sense of what the image is, versus Picross is like, hey, pull up when you're done, I'll show you something that kind of looks like it could be a chair. It's like, because the art is sort of more like, pixelated and abstracted with Picross. So, but that is kind of like what it's reminiscent of. And I'm really loving it so far. The sound design is really impeccable. It's so like satisfying and cute and nice. And it's just like it's a good time. But Jenny, you're playing this as well. You've been playing it.
Yeah, I've been playing it on mobile, and honestly, it's one of those perfect games where I will, if I'm watching a TV show or a movie, I will just have my phone and like I could be cross stitching a real or embroidering a real thing, but instead, I have this because it's just nice. Because honestly, it's sometimes I just don't want to craft. There's too much stuff that you have to have around you, your
Mhm.
thread, your needle, all of that, and so it's nice just to have like it plays really well on mobile. If you have Apple Arcade, highly recommend it. The complexity, like I will say, like the first few, I was like, oh man, I hope it gets a little bit more complex because some of these are just very, very straightforward. But there's a huge range in terms of the size of the hoop that you get for the embroidery, and the sort of the complexity of the sections and how the numbers divide up. So if you're feeling like, oh, this is a little too easy, just like move forward. I don't know if on Switch they'd have them kind of all open to you or how
I
they
think
unlock on the
it
Switch.
starts off closed, I think, but I think it opens
Okay.
once you're done with a few of them to like a
Okay.
free, like potentially. I'm not really like fully sure yet.
Yeah, on mobile, if it works out the same, like the more complex stuff opens up very quickly, so you can really easily just be like, all right, let's skip ahead and just like go into the stuff that feels more like appropriate for what the level challenge I want, which is great. And if you also like the simple ones too, perfect. I can't say too much more about it. It's just like a really feel good game. I like the designs too. It's always nice to find like it's like a puzzle, right? You find a good picture, you're like, I just really want to make this cute penguin. Let's do it for
Yeah.
the
Always.
I
next.
get that feeling a lot, yeah.
And
Yeah,
you can, and it's
you
great. And
can.
it's like, and I love too, like the way they talked about it in the indie world showcase, where it was like, I believe it was like a husband and a wife question mark. Now I hope I didn't get that
Yeah,
wrong.
I think
Where
so.
like they talked about like kind of combining their hobbies together, like the knowledge of embroidery with like also just game design, and like that's also really cool. And I just love like when a simple idea hits, when they
Mhm.
take the time to explore it, and when it gets like all the details right. And that's the vibe that Stitch gives me.
Yeah, I will say because I've always wanted more because I love felting and like thread crafts, and I've always wanted more embroidery or cross stitch in games, and that's like the one like if there was a cozy hobby that we need that's not like farming or baking or anything like that, let's bring more
Mhm.
of like the thread crafts in. Um, And I will say it's really nice to have that because there have been games that have tried it, I think, but they've never quite like captured the feeling of actually doing it. And I think this is probably the closest that for me that comes to like, oh, I feel like I'm getting the actual feeling of making an embroidery. It's nice. Yeah. I guess was that the focus for this week for you, Janet?
Yeah. And by this week, I mean like today, because it came out today on
5
Switch.
hours ago.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'll have more stuff soon. The end, and the thing with like doing embargoed games, it's like you end up playing it before you can talk about it, and then you're
Yep.
like, "What
Hmm.
was I playing? Nothing to the untrained eye." Legally speaking. Yeah, more to come soon. And then apparently every game on May 9th, so look forward to that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we're gonna be so busy. Mike, what have you been playing besides Hades?
I have been playing another Crab's Treasure, and that's all I could say about it.
Yeah. I loved the transition that Janet allowed because I think
Mhm.
I am also playing another Crab's Treasure and I can say nothing else about it at this time.
I just got it, so I could say nothing about it if I had opened it. I'm assuming my embargo's the same. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
and I
didn't actually read it
too
yet.
have been playing another Grab's Treasure, and I also cannot say anything about that.
What a great
We
show.
look forward we look
Yeah.
forward to saying something about it
Mhm.
maybe next week, maybe sometime in the future.
Yeah.
Sometime in the near future.
Yep. Uh,
Um,
yeah, Jill, I guess do you have any games that you can share?
I do. I talked a little bit about Lorelai and the Laser Eyes
Mhm.
up at the top of the show, so go check that preview out. But also, I didn't mention the title of this game is so perfect. I just want to say it all the time. Lorelai and the Laser Eyes. Like
It's a good name.
normally
Yeah.
you get that long a
Mhm.
title and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to chunk it down a little bit," but no, this is perfect. Um We also sort of mentioned this at the top of the show. I have been playing Life Eater, which
Hell
is
yeah.
the new game from Strange Scaffold, who Xavier Nelson Jr., who we had on the show recently, uh, helped create, and is so funny and hilarious, but also really smart and really maybe terrifying because this game is unsettling.
Before you get into it, did you, speaking of this game and crab game, did you see the TikTok he put together of him kidnapping the crab plush
I
and it
Mhm.
got taken
did.
down and reported?
That's
Yes.
hilarious.
He has
Incredible.
not got a good track record with
No.
TikTok.
But it's so good
It's
because
great.
it's
I'd
like,
argue he has a great track record.
yeah, it's
That's
such
fair.
a great marketing thing that it's just a natural thing that he does.
Mhm.
Life Eater is, you can go on my website and watch me play it because I did play it on stream. It is essentially, you are in charge of saving the world, asterisks. In order to save the world, you have to listen to the Lord of the Earth, uh, Zimvold, I think was his name. His
Janet's the Lord of the Earth.
Mhm.
probably. Um,
Blanks there. Nothing. Okay, there you go.
sorry. And then kidnap and ritualistically kill people who you are told to do this to. So the gameplay, the chunk, like the meat of the gameplay, I really don't like that I just said that, actually, like, in the considering what you do to these people. The general flow of the gameplay is you are given a sort of blank daily agenda, like a calendar, and you have to keep in mind how much time you have, because obviously your Lord and Savior wants things done in an orderly time before the world ends. Um, but also you have to keep your suspicion meter in mind, because if your suspicion meter gets too high, you get a strike. If you get 3 strikes, you get arrested for being super suspicious and doing all these illegal things. Um, so with that in mind, you have to do actions which take up time and are at various levels suspicious in order to reveal the character you are trying to kidnap's daily, like, agenda. And this becomes very important in the next section. Once you have sort of, you have that fleshed out as much as possible. Also, that's not a great term for what you're doing in this game. Once you have revealed, like, this person sleeps from this time to this time, this person commutes to work, this person uh is going through a hard time in their life. Like, it's weird how figuring out what they do from day to day reveals the narrative of these people's lives in a very, like, weird, voyeuristic, impersonal, but if you're paying attention, very personal way. Like, the first person that you are set to kidnap, you feel really good about, because you through the details sort of figure out this person is a dirty cop who is burying bodies on the
Listening.
weekend, and yeah, who's like taking bribes regularly, who's having shady meetings and stuff. So you're like, okay, I don't feel too bad about what I'm about to do to this person. Um, so you once you get a certain amount of their life figured out, you can kidnap them. Once you kidnap them, you go to phase 2, and that's the most, it's also like, in order to stop the end of the world, you have to do a ritual. And what you do for the ritual depends on what this person's life looks like. So it's, you get like a little flow chart essentially of like how to do how to stop the end of the world, you know? So it's things like, if they have black hair, take out their right lung, and then you do that. You know, if they have kids, break this and this rib, and you have to go through the flow chart and make sure you don't get to go back to notes. You don't get to go back to the chart at any point. So you have to remember what this person's life was. So
Dang.
you better be writing separate notes in order to get this correct, because if at the end you It's called Watering the Flower, and I kid you not, that's what it's called, to finally murder this person.
I
If
love
you
Xalavir so much.
I
I
know, right? If you water the flower and you have details wrong, the world will end. Like, the game will end, you will have not succeeded, and you have to start over from the beginning.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
like, it is very important for you to remember all these things and do this horrible stuff. Um, and for the first chapter, you are, even though you're doing horrible things and kidnapping people and taking out lungs and that sort of thing, you sort of believe that you're the good guy. But then you get into the later game and you really start to question that beyond just I'm kidnapping people and murdering them. Like, I'm starting to do things that yeah, I don't know if I'm good, you know? So that's Life Eater. I hope everyone enjoys it.
I'm so
Sounds like the perfect
excited.
game for Jill.
I really enjoy it, you know?
That's
It was
great.
a lot of fun. Um,
We're unlocking Sicko Jill.
in order to counteract that on my stream, I jumped into Sky Children of the Light, and I have
Same
no
thing.
one to blame except Jenny. Because earlier this week, Jenny Wyndham jumped onto like a paid stream
Mhm.
and was playing Sky Children of the Light. And to watch Jenny play this game is like the most wholesome, delightful, like your soul feels lifted. You're just like ready to take on whatever. Like the clouds part in the sky. I don't even know how she does it. When I'm playing it, I'm like, who's this? Who's this dude? What are we do? What are you doing over here? You look suspicious. Like all of a sudden it's some kind of weird twisted game. I don't know how I managed to do it, but it is so beautiful. It's out on Steam right now. It's free because it's in early access, so you can literally go download Sky Children of the Light on Steam for free, play the whole thing. It's fantastic. It's so beautiful if you haven't played. Um Another game that I played on stream, Munch. It's out. It's not out yet, but the demo is up currently. I think this might be like a mic game through and through. You
Ooh.
are the overall objective is to fight the current gods to bring back the gods of heavy metal. Um,
Oh.
and you are playing as originally a little eyeball with wings, but as you destroy things and eat the flesh of the things that you are
Mm.
destroying, you start to evolve to get stronger. So you turn into like this big thing with arms and it punches through things, and you get into like this thing that's got like a big humpback that's got more moves. You get more moves, more power, more objectives. You're like destroying buildings as you go through. It's a roguelike, so you're getting experience every time you eat something, which every time you hit a certain amount of experience, you get to choose a different ability or up a boost, a stat or something. Once you complete the ultimate goal, which might be like destroy this other god's like idol or something, you go to the next level, and the next level is like a new phase of the world. So you start out in like ancient Greece, Rome sort of area, which they called the Golden Age, and then you move on to the Dark Ages, and then you move on to the Industrial Age, and then you move on to like modern times. So it's like, and it's, oh my gosh, the music is so good. Mike, you have to listen to this. I'm so excited for you to check this out yourself, because it's, I'm not a huge connoisseur when it comes to metal music, but the people in my chat were just absolutely popping off on what they were hearing. They're like, the references are awesome. I'm like, I'm not getting any of that, but I'm so glad you guys are enjoying this. The art style is also amazing, hand drawn kind of pop. I love it.
Listening to the gameplay music or the gameplay trailer music, it's sick as hell.
It's so sick.
It is on the wish list.
Kingsgrave came out today as a recording. It's kind of Zelda, kind of Souls-like, kind of um oh, I forgot what the third kind of was. But you go around and you I mean you essentially come back as like you were a king who had a kingdom that was ravished by a plague of some sort, and you died. You straight up died. 50 years pass, some kind of golden light creature resurrects you to rebuild the kingdom, take everything back. So you're just going around and you are fighting little monsters. You are unlocking, like, you're saving people who count as resources. You're getting like rocks and metal chunks and whatever, so you can rebuild like essentially tools for you to use so that you can get a crossbow. And not only are you able to fight long distance now, you're able to unlock puzzles that you couldn't get to before, because now you can shoot across that chasm in order to hit the thing that opens the door to go on to the next. And it's just a really smooth, really cool, like, resource gathering, fighting, unlocking things, Metroidvania kind of deal, uh, with a lot of fun and a lot of heart. And last but not least, another thing that Jenny made me play, Bloomtown, a different story. It's different indeed, Jenny. It is as
Yeah.
it's as you said. It is charming and lovely and wholesome, and like it's got that little happy life sim on one side, and on the other side, like I'm talking to the devil and I'm making deals, you know? Like I don't know what else I could want in a game. I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, I'm curious because I wasn't sure if I just wasn't very good and I didn't capture this, or if maybe the demo didn't have it. Were you able to capture any of like the demons that you encountered? Okay,
No.
cool. I was nervous that I missed like a huge component of the game.
No, I think that that part wasn't, I mean, in yet, but like
Yeah.
I need to figure out how to get this game in my life when it does come out. So,
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Cool. Well, let's see. Also, have been playing Sky Children of the Light. I will caveat that with it was a sponsored stream that I was doing, but I had been playing Sky before that because originally it actually has been out on mobile. I think it's on Switch as well, but I never played it on Switch. And they sponsored me to cover like the PC launch specifically. But I've been playing the game. I didn't actually enjoy it too much on mobile personally because the screen was just a little bit too small. I think the game lends itself much more solidly to a bigger screen and
yes.
controller for me, and like keyboard. Just not using the mobile setup. I cannot control a game mobily. Um, but it's really beautiful. If you're a fan of Journey, I think this is one to play. The first time you go through the loop, because the game is sort of this looping game. I will say the first couple of areas I did feel like, I don't know, it's really beautiful, but like what is it going to give me that is showing me the team has grown from Journey? Like what more is there? I think the level of interactivity with other people is really interesting because they build on some of the stuff that Journey introduces where there's no voice chat. There's you can opt into certain levels of interaction, but you can always opt out very quickly if you end up not wanting to interact with someone. So that's really cool. I do believe it's one of the true, like, quote, cozy MMOs for that respect. Um, I also think the way that they've structured it feels very narratively similar to Journey, but the final areas are what pushed this over and made me realize this is actually a step up in terms of storytelling from Journey. The last level, I think, I guess slight spoiler for the name of it, but they call it Eden, and it is the one of the most intense, outstanding levels I think I've played in a long time. I got so personally invested. So if you liked Journey, I think I can solidly recommend going through this game. You can play solo. So if you also are like, I don't want to play an MMO, I don't want to interact with other people, it's a bit antithetical to like the intention of the game, but it's possible. So you can go through, play it by yourself. It'll take you maybe 4 to 6 hours to go through an entire loop. And then after that, it's really about building relationships within the game. So if you wanted to play the loop one time and call it good, you probably would be fine. If you feel really involved and encompassed by the world and the characters, I would highly encourage you to stay because there's a lot to discover and it's free. So there's that. It's a free game, which is kind of incredible. And then I have been playing more Stardew Valley, not 1.6 because I'm playing it on my Switch. So I need to just get it on my Steam Deck. I don't know why I have not downloaded it there yet. And American Arcadia, which is a game that actually came out last year. I started it last year, never finished it, and so I've been going back and we're playing it as a part of Geeks and Grounds this month. And so I've actually finished it. And I really love the way this game stuck the landing. I think I was really intrigued by the way American Arcadia really references things like The Truman Show, Logan's Run, if you're a fan of like sci-fi, like 70s, 80s sci-fi dystopic worlds. It's really just about this man named Trevor who is trapped in a 24/7 reality TV show that he doesn't know he's a part of. And the game is about him escaping and someone on the outside helping him to avoid a fate of death because he is the least popular character in this reality show. And apparently, if you're the least popular, you're like sentenced to doom. The game brings up really, really poignantly and like very timely issues of privacy, of reality TV, of government like and military oversight, and how it kind of like invades a lot of our personal lives. And I think most interestingly for me as a content creator, this idea of like what do you keep for yourself and like what do you do for yourself that's not broadcast to other people. I think that was a really interesting thread that they took and that really is continuing to stick with me. I'm continuing to think about it, so highly recommend. It's like, I don't know, I think I took a long time to play it, but I think if you go through it, probably about 4 to 6 hours. The sticking point for me though is it does the thing that Bramble and Limbo kind of does and Little Nightmare kind of does, where there are chase sequences. And I I feel like if in a chase sequence, particularly in those 2D sort of side scrolly games, if you cannot get through a chase sequence in 2 tries because they've telegraphed it well, that's not a good sign. There were some telegraphing in the chase sequences of this game where I would have to try like 3 to 6, sometimes upwards of 10 times before I figured out what it was I needed to do during the chase sequence. And it happened frequently enough that it kind of started to get me a little bit irked by the end of the game. But I think thematically, like everything else was so on point, it's worth playing still. But just something to note, like there's some like clunkiness, I think, with the telegraphing of the chase scenes in particular. But really good game otherwise. I'm excited. They just announced their next game, which is totally different. It's like, what is it? The Masked Vigilante? I forget what it was called. But it's like their next game is this narrative RPG choice-based game set after the Vietnam War. So they just are all over the place, in I think a really interesting, cool way. So this is Out of the Blue Games. So yeah, that's what I played.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that is it for this week's council. Anything else y'all wanted to bring up just as we're wrapping it up?
It's time to play more Hades too.
It's time
Yeah.
to play. Yeah, we
Oh
need
my
to. We
gosh,
need to
Mike,
go.
let's
So
all
that
go over to Mike's.
yeah, we need to go to Mike's. So thank you to everyone for joining us. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I think technically, since it's still April, is it still April? Yes. We're still on Google Podcasts. And we have our own socials if you want to follow us. We're at Indie Council _ on Twitter. And at the Indie Council everywhere else, which is Blue Sky, Threads, and Instagram. Thank you, Janet, for putting that in so I can remember. All right, so that is it. This session is closed. Go play some indies.